Hey, what's going on? It's Alex with Lectron, and today we're going to be installing the BILLETRON Mini on a 2021 KTM 85. Alright, so we're going to go over a few tools you're going to need to install this BILLETRON Mini. You're going to need a T45 Torx socket, an 8mm socket, a Phillips screwdriver. You'll need a 6mm T-handle or socket. I like to use a Torx T30 socket as well. So those are the tools you'll need. Alright, so we're going to turn the gas off. Remove the bolt for the seat. Remove the seat. I like to put the bolts back in the seat so you don't ever lose it. Pull the gas tank on up there. Get that rubber. We have two radiator bolts here up front. We're going to go ahead and pop those out. I recommend if you use an impact for anything, just remove it for uninstalling. Don't use it when you're putting the bike back together. You can cause a lot of damage with that. So remove the gas line here from the petcock. Now we're going to pry these front fenders out and up. It's going to allow us to get the tank to pop. Alright, so next we're going to go ahead and take off this silencer off the back of the bike here. You're going to use the Torx, the T30 here. Go ahead and pop that out. Slide it off. Set that aside. Next, you're going to grab your T45 and you're going to loosen the 4 subframe bolts here. One. And the top ones you just break free. There's no reason to take them out, so we're just going to leave those in, but we're just going to break them free. Then loosen this guy. I like to switch back over to my impact once I've got them broken free. And then remove them out. Alrighty, so next you're going to want to loosen the 2 carburetor clamps here. I like to use the T-handle 6mm. You can also use a flathead screwdriver if you don't have a 6mm wrench or T-handle around. So we're going to go ahead and loosen those up. At this point we're going to just fold the subframe up. Right now you'll just use wire cutters to cut any hose clamps that are on there holding the vent lines together, and then fish them through. Alright, next you'll go ahead and pull your carb out and then pull it aside. You may get a little bit of fuel that comes out. That's normal. Alright, next you're going to want to go ahead and remove your top cover. There'll be 2 Phillips screws. I already removed one. Pull it aside. Be very careful with the needle. Don't let it just swing around in there and hit something. Set the carburetor aside. You don't want to just dump it over. There is going to be fuel in it. It will spill out all over. So just go ahead and set it aside nicely. Then you're going to grab the slide. Remove that screw. You're going to want to pull this spring up all the way and get that white little cap to drop out and get that spring to come out of that notch and pull it out. Pull all the accessories off. Alright, to remove the top cover, you're going to need a 10mm wrench. You're going to go ahead and put it on there and give it a little twist, break that free, spin that off. Alright, we're going to get this BILLETRON Mini ready for installation. This has the easy tuning kit option installed on it, so it does have the quick adjuster top cover bolts here. So you're going to want to remove those and set those aside. Next, you'll want to take out the top cover. It'll come with the spring. You'll have a gasket there as well. Be careful not to bend or fold that. Now, carefully dump the carb upside down and jiggle it to get the slide to come out. Here's going to be your slide with metering rod. Set that aside. Alright, now this BILLETRON Mini is ready for installation. Alright, so you're going to want to remove these little centering tabs off the stock intake manifold. We like to take just an X-Acto knife and just give them a nice little cut right there. And we'll go ahead and show you how to do it on one right here. Just going to go ahead and get it flat and just give it a nice cut there. Get a nice sharp blade. Just cut those little tabs right off there. You're going to take the top cover and go ahead and install that onto the throttle cable. Go ahead and get started and give it a nice little spin right there. You don't want to tighten it down just yet. Next, you want to throw the gasket on, then the spring, Compress the spring down all the way with your thumb. Pull the cable out. Our cables, or our slides, have a little notch in it. So your throttle cable is just going to sit right in that notch. You're going to let that spring go. There we go. Alright, next you're going to want to install the slide into the carb. Make sure the flat side of the metering rod is facing the motor when you install it. Go ahead and get that in there and install that slide. You shouldn't have to force it. If you are having to force it, look in there and make sure that metering rod is in fact into the pickup tube. It should slide in relatively easy. Install your top cover screws or your billet thumb screws and give them a nice snug them down. Now we're just going to slip that carb on in there and give her a push. Alright, you want to get all your vent lines put back through that little guide there. So get those pushed in there. Center that carb back. And I like to snug the front one down a little bit once I get it centered. That way I know it's not going anywhere. Alright, now we're ready to drop the airbox. So I like to pull a little bit of slack around these to allow that airbox just to drop right around there. So now you want to drop your airbox back down, massage it on. You want your little clamp on the bottom. It makes it fit that boot really well. Make sure it's sealed nicely around the back of the airbox there, and snug it down. Okay, and I like to push on it towards the motor. Make sure we got a good seal on that front intake manifold as well. And snug it down. You don't want to tighten them too tight, because if you tighten it too tight, it can almost flare it out and cause it to not seal properly around there either. Alright, so it looks like we got a good seal all the way around this thing. It's not going anywhere. Gonna go ahead and drop this dust boot back down. And she's installed. Alright, so once we got the carb installed, we're going to check on the throttle free play here. As you can see, this is a little bit too much. So we're going to go ahead and remove this little dust boot off the throttle. Loosen this back nut. And we're going to pull some slack out. Alright, so that's about what we're looking for. Just a little bit of play in the throttle. I like to check it while turning the bars at the furthest spot. That way we know we're good. Go ahead and install that dust boot back on. Just go over a few things. Make sure you have good throttle play from left to right. Make sure your top cover is tight. Your dust boot is pulled down nice and over the top cover there. Make sure your hose clamps are tightened, not over tightened to where they're flaring or anything. Make sure the carb is sealed up nice and tight against the manifold and there's no gaps. Give it a shake, make sure it's tight, and now you're ready to put your bike back together. You're going to want to install the subframe bolts back in. Okay. Then we'll put our exhaust back on. Alright, so once you get it in, the bolts back in, go ahead and start tightening everything down. And I like to do all my removal with an impact and all my putting back together with a good old T-handle. And you don't over tighten, strip anything, cause any damage. And get that snugged up too. Alright. Give those little fins a little poke in there. Make sure you get your gas tank in these little tabs right here when you go put it back in. Install this guy. So when you tighten these down, you want to make sure that that plastic shroud is centered on that shoulder nut. That way you don't damage the plastic and it drops right in there. Okay. If you don't do that, you'll just mash that plastic up and it can damage the actual spot. Get your vent line back for your tank. Now you'll grab your seat. That bolt out of the back there and slide that on. Let's get that bolt back in there. Now we got to connect the carb to the gas tank. So sometimes the carb will come with a little bit too long of fuel line. You just line it up, measure it, and cut it straight with some wire cutters. No big deal. Go ahead and slip that on, and you're good to go. All right, so now that you got the fuel line installed, you can turn the gas on. Here we go. Enjoy. The air pockets are totally normal. It's all real clear. You're now able to see it on your OEM stuff. It's all gray. You can't see through the line. This is translucent, so now you're able to see everything.